Hey y'all, this is Ask Joe number 223.
Hey there, Joe Gilder here. Welcome to another frazzled edition of Ask Joe. I try to do too many things at once. And if you're here on the live stream, you've seen me flounder around trying to get a better camera angle, trying to figure out the intro, trying to get the internet to work, just lots of things. And then Caitlin just texted me that they're going to send a Homestead Collective intro. So I'm going to hold you to that. That would be awesome. Welcome. If you're watching the recording or listening to the podcast, I'm really glad you're listening. It means a lot that you take your time to listen to what I have to say, and I hope it's really helpful for you and maybe mildly entertaining along the way. If you're here live, special thank you to you, I've got a pen in my hand, for being here, because you could be doing anything right now at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, but you're here, so many thanks to you. I mean, this coffee cup kind of demonstrates my frazzledness. It says Home Studio Corner, but then there's like tea dripping down the side. I'm just not together today. And that's okay. Today I want to get to your questions. I'm going to get to a lot of your questions, but I want to talk about, and I wish I had something to make my computer up higher. I want to talk about goals. I go back and forth on this whole idea of goals, and I just think I've been reading and studying a bunch of stuff, and I talked about this a little bit last week. I want to talk about it a little bit more. Maybe I did talk about it last week. I'm losing my mind. I talked about this exact thing last week, so forget about it. We're not going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about my new EP coming up, because that is one of the goals I set for myself for the next 12 weeks or so, or 12 weeks starting a week or so ago, is to release a new EP by May 14th. So you can go ahead and get out your old calendar and mark that sucker, because I'm going to be releasing a new EP. And what's it going to sound like? No clue. Wrote a song just before lunch. It's kind of good. You tell me. If you look at it, it's pretty short lyrically. The melody seems okay. It's kind of a downer song, which are my specialty. So I have no idea what it's going to sound like, but we've already booked the tracking day. Tim Horsley on drums, Joel Bazare on bass, me playing something, plugged into something, and we're going to lay down some songs. So my goal is to get 10 songs written in the next 2 weeks. I've had a few that I've written that I might use, but I want to write 10 more to have a blob of songs from which to choose. And then I'm going to pick a song, or pick 5 songs, 5 or 6, and we're going to track those and then do production on those. So I'm very excited. I haven't recorded drums or even much electric guitar or bass in this room, so I'm excited to do that. Really the only, other than a few one-off things for myself, the Homestead Collective EP is kind of the last bigger session I had in here. I've done several sessions at other studios, but I'm excited to do some here. And to just, you've seen my studio tour video that I put up this week, maybe. If you haven't, check out my YouTube channel, Home Studio Tour 2018. But it's just a big space. So I can put Tim over there by the window. I can give Joel his own place to sit and hang out. I can be over here in the command central, which we did when we tracked for my album Better This Way, and it was super fun. But we were all crammed into a room, so it'll be a little more open, and I have no idea. I imagine I'm going to try to do a little more production on the front end, and then do tracking on top of some tracks that have already been created. That's the idea. So we'll see how much of that I stick to. It really depends on the songs, and I'm not entirely sure what the vibe of the songs is going to be. I'm just going to start writing. Got it in the calendar to write something every day and to see what comes out of it. But I'm excited. It's going to be good. And also, I'll be documenting the process for a secret project that I'll tell you about later. So you won't see much of it here on YouTube. I'll probably talk about it here on the podcast a little bit, but it's somewhat hush-hush, although I just told it to everyone. And then eventually we'll get back to... You'll hear more about it towards the end of the process. But anyway, so I'm very excited about that. So what does that process look like? Well, for me, obviously, it starts with songs. You remember a couple years ago, I wrote 50 songs in 12 weeks with the idea of getting 10 good ones, so that 80-20 rule taken quite literally. This time I'm going to write maybe 10 to add to the handful that I already have. and see if I can get 5 good ones out of it. The last several EPs that I did, I basically just wrote 5 or 6 songs, and they became a 4 or 5 song EP, not giving myself much room there and buffer. Also, I haven't revisited a lot of songs I wrote during that 50-song challenge that maybe could work on an EP, although I'm pretty sure 37 of them were bad, so I'm probably not going to revisit those, but there may be 1 or 2. There's one I wrote for a VIP songwriter challenge that I completely forgot about. So lots to think about, but I am playing an acoustic show this weekend in Franklin, Tennessee with a buddy, Freddie Phillips. You may have seen him on an episode of Gilder or something. So that'll be fun. We're like playing for 3 hours, so I'll probably play all of my songs and maybe some of the new ones that I write this week, and maybe that'll give me some ideas of what I want to do musically. But I really just want to get in a room with musicians. That's what I want to do. Maybe I'll try to co-write some songs. I don't know if I've got the time to do that between now and then, but I really just want to invite creativity into it. I want to write some of these songs for some piano so I can go over to some like Lid Shaw studio and record them. His big, beautiful, I think it's a Steinway. There's just lots of things that I want to do. And we'll just kind of see what happens. But it all has to start with the song. So I'll start with the song, which is what is that? That's the motto for NSAI. It all begins with a song. And once I've got the songs, then I'll pull back and do some pre-production. And pre-production and the songwriting process are going to be pretty intertwined, especially if I'm recording stuff as I'm writing. So if I record a guitar part and loop it, and then I record some background vocals and leave those, kind of like I did for the last EP, Fighter, and then I'm recording scratch tracks on top of that, who knows which of those tracks will make it to the final production. If I'm doing drum loops or I'm bringing in other elements, I don't know yet. But I imagine it's not going to be I just sit with my guitar and write, and then I record scratch tracks, and then we do a tracking day. That's historically the way I've done it. I'm going to try to blur the lines a little bit more and get more creative on that front end. So I'm giving myself 2 weeks to write songs, another week to do pre-production before the tracking day. So it gives me some time to play. Because once you have the tracking day, then everything is set, right? We've recorded everything. Now it's just filling that stuff out with extra overdubs. So the real creativity, or a lot of the, not the real creativity, but a lot of the creativity when it comes to just what direction is this thing going to go, happens before that tracking day. So I'm hoping to spend some time just fleshing stuff out. Maybe I'll do a few YouTube lives while I'm trying to do that, just to get vibes going for songs, maybe come up with some, really play around with guitars and pedals and pedal effects and things like that, just to kind of see what sort of sounds come out and then write songs around that. I don't know. I say I don't know, and I know that probably seems weird that I'm in the process of writing for an EP and I don't know what I want it to sound like, but to me, that's what makes it so exciting. I just don't have a clue what songs are going to come out of me, and once they come out of me and I pick the ones that seem to go together and are the best ones, and then we'll just see what happens. There's so much unknown in the world of creating art, even though there are known pathways, and there's known ways to get good guitar sound, and there's known ways to process a lead vocal. The creativity can be anything. Like the other day at dinner, I was doing this thing where I was doing like that, and I thought, that sounds cool. I want to write a song where that's like the main hook, where I'm going something stupid like that. Who knows what it'll be on the song, but it's stuff like that that gets me excited. I love doing the production once the decisions are made, but I really want to give myself time to make some good decisions in the meantime, because that's where all the fun happens. Boom. I broke it. There was a loop there, and I had the best boom of my life. Oh, are you kidding me? Because that's where all the fun happens. But why would there be a loop right there? That's the worst thing ever. Now I got to punch it in. Oh, that's so amateur. Because that's where all the fun happens. Boom. I'm very disappointed. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, nothing happened. But if you're watching the video, I went in to do the boom, and for some reason loop record was on, and it kept looping over the boom. I was feeling so smug about my boom. Oh, that was a bad boom. Classic Joe, Birdie Wings says. Such a sad boom. Hashtag sad boom. By the way, if you're here live, Post a tweet or Facebook with a link to this stream so if folks have questions they can come ask, because now we've reached the asking part of our time together. And also, if you're here live, stick around. I usually hang out afterwards for a little after party. Woo woo! So make sure you stick around for that. Yes, Birdie Wings, I mentioned you. I'm not famous. It's not that... Okay, no, it's not that impressive. Okay, so if you've asked questions already in the chat, if you want to post it again, because I may not see it if I have to scroll back up, and we'll answer your questions. I did see one here about a tube. Nope, that was talking to somebody else. All right, never mind. Just One says, how important is a standalone preamp when recording vocals? Just purchased a Presonus studio channel. It's just a part of the process. So I have some standalone preamps, one of which is dead. And I think they add a depth and kind of a larger than lifeness to the sound. You can get a great recording plugged straight into your audio interface, but it gives you a little something extra that, in my experience, makes it a little easier to get the vocal tone you want in the mix. But if all you have are stock preamps, totally fine. You can insert 1,000 stories of people who made hit records using stock preamps, just as much as you can say they recorded through $10,000 tube preamps. It's just kind of different levels of improvement, and it's not to say you couldn't find that improvement in other areas if you had to. Does that make sense? Is your new EP going to be number 4 of 4? Don, I don't know. Probably not. That ship has sailed. This is 2018, so if I said it was the 2017 4 of 4, that would feel weird. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. Harper says, do you use drum replacement? If so, what do you use? I, to date, have ne'er replaced a drum. Well, is that true? I tried once and it didn't work very well. So I don't have Drumagog or Trigger or Insert, whatever other ones there are. Part of it's just because I'm lazy. I don't like installing and maintaining plugins in my system because I just don't like it if I have to update something and then they don't work anymore. I really love setting up a mic and recording it and then using the tools I have available to make it sound good. Not saying it's wrong to use samples. Plenty of people more successful than me use samples to great results, and there's probably a good chance that I'm missing out by not using them. And I may change my tune on that. I didn't use auto-tune on my own voice for a long time and then realized, hey, I sound better with it. Let's do that. That was just last year, really. So I'm not against it. I like the challenge of taking a recorded part and figuring out a way to make it sound good without simply replacing it. And I understand a lot of people use samples to augment what they're doing. So they're not replacing it, they're just adding a sample to it. I totally get that. It's all legit. I'm re-listening to the diary, what is it? The Mixer Man, what is it? The Diaries of Mixer Man? What's it called? The Daily Adventures of Mixer Man, which is just hilarious. It's just really funny stuff. Not for the faint of heart, but he can be so belligerent about like Pro Tools is bad, any kind of editing is bad, it needs to be in its raw form and untouched. And I understand that, and I probably lean more in that direction than a lot of people. But at the same time, like, we have these tools available. If they can improve it, great. Why not just go ahead and improve it and enjoy the improvements, right? So I could go either way, but those are my thoughts on the matter. Will Paxton says, how are your three-word goals for the year going? Pretty good. So my 3 words for the year, in case you missed that video, which you should go watch it. I don't know if it's good. 3 words are story, buffer, and healthy. The healthy one's going pretty well. I've been working out 5 times a week at 5:45 in the morning, so I get tired towards the end of the week. The buffer thing I'm getting a little better at, as far as like leaving room, especially when I'm creating content for Home Studio Corner, trying to leave a buffer there is working somewhat well. And then story, that one's hard to measure, but I think I'm engaging in some better stories in the different goals that I'm setting for myself and some different things I'm getting myself into. So yeah, I'll say going pretty well. They're such vague things, they're not really goals, so it's hard to measure, but it's good to be reminded. Mic placement, straight up or upside down? I don't know what you're asking, Basilio. It should sound the same either way. It's a lot of times it just matters. For me, it's a matter of this cable here. Is it going to be in the way if it's coming out of the bottom of the mic? So like if it's a singer and they move their hands a lot, I'd almost rather flip it upside down so they can move their hands and the cable's up here somewhere, not in the way of the singer. But otherwise, I don't care at all. Thomas says, please explain to a non-English speaking dude, what is due diligence or how it's spelled? Due diligence is kind of a legal thing, like Bartimus said. That means like if I'm gonna do a deal with you, where like I'm gonna buy a big piece of property to do a big real estate development, then I need to do my due diligence to make sure that I've checked everything out before signing the deal. So making sure I've done the research and I've done environmental studies and I make sure there's no liens on the property that would come back on me if I bought it. Like I don't know how that all works, but that's the idea of before just signing on the bottom line, I figure out what the real details are before doing that. Now, how have I used it? You said I used it before. I don't know. I don't remember. Sorry. Neil says the 11 rack. Your favorite amp on that thing, and do you use it live? I've used it live at my church a couple years ago, a couple times, and it was fine. Favorite amp, I like the Fender Bassman on there, especially when you crank it. It's cool. It's crunchy, and it's fun the way it'll respond to turning the volume up and down on the guitar. But I found I tend to like cleaner amp sound with distortion and overdrive going into it from pedals. Just seems a little more controllable. But yeah, I love it. I haven't turned it on in a while. Sorry. But I'll probably use it some for that tracking day so we're not having amp bleed, but we'll see. Do you ever do any reamping? I don't. I love the idea. It seems very creative. But I don't. I would rather get it right on the front end and then move on. I'm not against it. I just don't. This is Pigeon Bros. I'm starting a new album and decided to document the entire process. Any tips? Just try to make it valuable. Now, valuable can mean educational. It can mean entertaining. It can mean interesting. So, now, granted, what you think interesting, everyone else might not. So as you're putting those I'm assuming it's videos or articles or whatever, a lot of people will find that interesting. If you're not getting a good response in terms of comments or views or engagements or likes or whatever, then maybe adjust what you're doing and try different things. But there's really no one size fits all, right? That's why there are a bajillion YouTube channels, because you may connect with one person more than another, and a lot of it's just personality and how they're presenting themselves. So, but that's super fun. I love that idea. I feel like it gives you a lot of leverage for once the album's out, you've been talking about it and people have seen you doing it along the way. So to me, it seems like it builds up more interest than if you just said, hey, I got a record, which I think we talked about last week on this show or somewhere. So good on you. I think that's a super cool idea. What are good mics to mic drums, not too expensive? I love the CAD M179 for toms. It's super cheap. An SM57 will go a long way on just about everything else. So there you go. That's an oversimplified answer, but it's legit. Have you ever worked for a month or so on a song writing? No. I tend to subscribe to the get it done and move on school, which means I probably abandon songs too soon, or I kind of just finish it and never look at it again. And that's both good and bad. Like if it's just a bad song, I'll finish it and just be like, put that one in the bad pile. It got me some exercise of just doing the process of writing, but it's not something I'm going to use. If I have to spend that much time on a song, I tend to think it's probably not that great. But there are plenty of people you can find who work with painstaking detail on a song, and it makes it fabulous. So I just haven't gone that direction. But I'm not against it, especially if you just have a gut feeling that you're onto something great. I say don't settle for anything that's not great for that great song. Well, Tom says, but talking about K-system metering, K12, K14, mine is set to digital scale. So is your way a must? No, nothing I say is a must. I'm just talking about for measuring, the K-system's cool because it shows you an average level. See, peaks are pretty irrelevant. It doesn't matter what the peaks are doing. Seeing an average level gives you something that's not moving as fast, so you can set levels more mathematically in the sense of, okay, this mix is the same level as the last 10 mixes that I mixed, and it helps for consistency's sake. But no, you figure out your own way that works for you. Warrior's Heart Music says, I'm thinking about buying a Presonus 1604. I think it's 1602. Should I get the Firewire or USB version? Whichever one you have the plug for on your computer. It really doesn't matter. Joel says, can you tell us what you do to guitar sims to get them polished? Do you do anything on the 11 rack, or are they good just out of the box? I use Guitar Rig. The biggest thing you can do is to A, play well, be a good guitar player. If you're not an electric guitar player and you're trying to pretend to be, start there, because you're not going to sound good even if you dial in the perfect settings. I know that's harsh, but if you're an acoustic guy and you're trying to fake your way through electric, you need to spend a lot of time playing electric and learning how to play like an electric, because if you play electric like an acoustic, it's going to sound like you're an acoustic player trying to play electric, so nothing you do on the setting side of things is going to make much of a difference. That said, I tend to try to dial in tones that I think sound great. And I may do some, obviously, like EQ and stuff in the normal mix, but I'm usually, if I don't like it now, I'm not going to assume I can go fix it later. And especially because the way I record the 11 rack, I record the audio output into Studio One, so I'm not even using it as an interface or to like reamp. I just commit to it and go, which in my opinion is a great way to go. Do you use Scratchpad in Studio One? I don't. I've tried. I just haven't found a use for it yet. I just end up using the actual window itself as a scratch pad for writing songs. I've not found a need to have different versions over here, but I honestly haven't explored it much. I keep intending to, and I thought I would have used it a lot when I was writing for the Fighter EP, because I did so much loops and stuff like that, but I had the intention of using it, but I just ended up doing everything right on the timeline. Granted, I was writing and then just made a loop that just went on for the length of the song, so I wasn't like moving and arranging things too much. But even when I am, I don't find myself using that scratch pad. So maybe I just haven't figured it out, the best way to use it, and maybe I will in the future. But right now, I just don't. Andrew G says, hey Joe, just moved into a new city and the only person I know is the person I live with. You moved a bit. Any advice? I'm looking to get into mixing and recording, but totally new to the area. Andrew, your question could be, I'm a painter, I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, I'm a real estate agent. Any advice on getting into the community? And the answer is, what would you tell any of those people? You got to get into the community. Go to where the people are, start building relationships. And you got to just be a cool guy and provide value. Like, don't go up and be like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I want you to hire me. Like, nobody wants that. But if you come to my show and you say, hey, I loved your music, I really like that one song, and that's it. And then you come to another show a month from now, and you say, hey, I was at the last one, it was great, this one was even better, I really like this and this and this. And maybe we end up being friends on Facebook, and then you are super interesting and helpful and complimentary, and you send me a link to something every once in a while that's interesting, or those kind of things that just make up a normal, healthy relationship. Then maybe we do business together. So I would say start working now for the deal you're going to land in 18 months. And if that doesn't feel like something you're willing to do, then give up. I'm just kidding. That's the way this business is. Any business. You got to put in the work now for something that's probably not going to pay off for 18 months. Just use that mindset, so now you're not so worried about landing the deal now. You're worried about building a foundation and making a ton of relationships. The more people you know, the more chances you'll have of getting the gigs that come along. Got to be patient and aggressive somehow at the same time. Tommy Erickson, first time on the live stream. What are your thoughts on using a compressor on a send? Yay or nay? If you're doing some sort of like parallel processing where you've got like an uncompressed side and then use a send to send to another one for compression, sure. But I just don't do that much. Sorry. I'd rather duplicate the track and just compress one and not the other or something. I haven't done parallel processing like that in a long time. I just try to get it done with one compressor or two compressors on the track itself. Dell says, have you done any Gilder cams lately? I haven't. I'm low on time, and those take a lot of time. I am going to try to do some occasionally, but I'm also trying to make some videos that more people want to see, which are less about me and more about what you want. So tell me what you want. With streaming, MP3, is there any real benefit in 64-bit sound? You're talking two different things. 64-bit isn't the audio file, it's how your DAW processes the audio. There's not really such a thing as a 64-bit audio file. Now there's 64 kilobit per second MP3, which sounds awful. Is it 64? 128, 64? Like, I tend to do all my MP3 stuff at 320, which is the highest I think that's the highest one out there, and that sounds really good. 128 starts to sound a little sketchy. 64 sounds awful. So get it above 128. 192 sounds good. 320 sounds good. But 64-bit is talking about how your system, the math behind your software works, which that's as far as I'm going to go because I don't know much about it. Eric says, I use a SM57 on my snare drum, and it sounds very thin. Should I use a condenser mic to get a full sound? No. I mean, you could try it. If it's very thin, a couple things could be happening. The drum might sound very thin in the room, or you need to move the mic away from the drum. You probably have it super close, and depending on where you are, you're just not letting the sound develop, and you're just capturing a little piece of the sound. When I mic up a snare drum or a tom, imagine, I don't have a head here. Imagine this notebook is the drum, and here's the edge of it. A lot of people like to put the mic right there. And it's fine. It can get a certain sound, but it's probably going to ring a lot, and it's not going to have a lot of fatness. I like a fat snare drum. So when I'm recording, I like to imagine you put your hand right here, and the mic goes here above that. So it's a good probably 3 inches away. So I put the mic like here, and I move it over where it's pointing towards the center of the drum. So instead of being here on the edge, it's more like this. Just that movement alone will allow it to see and hear more of the drum and give you a bigger sound. Will you get a little more bleed? Maybe, but who cares if you got a great sounding snare track? Bigger picture though, if the snare itself sounds thin, then no mic technique's gonna really help. Also, it could be how the snare is tuned. If you're not the drummer, have the drummer tune it down a little bit. Try a different snare. And those are all things that we do on sessions. If, hey, that snare's not working, let me try tuning it. Nope, still not working. Let's swap the snare. That's better. Like those are typical conversations we have on a tracking session. And yes, changing the mic might help, but you should be able to get a great snare tone with a 57 because that's what we do all day, every day. Art Davis says, I'm using Studio One Artist. What would you say is the main reason to upgrade to Pro? Well, the Pro lets you use third-party plugins. Pro has the mastering suite. Pro has a few extra plugins like the multi-band compressor, which I like. And then there's other reasons that I don't know. Sorry. I've only been on Pro, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, there's a comparison chart out there, I believe. Casey says, do the vintage style effects in Studio One you use come free in the Studio One update? I haven't updated to 3.5 yet, and I'm asking, yes, the latest version of Studio One Pro has the fat channel with the new compressors and EQs, and they're awesome. From someone who's stayed away from third-party plugins, it's nice to have those. They actually do sound great and give you lots of different tonal options. I was just playing with the Pultec. It's magical. It's like it creates low end where there wasn't low end before, which is just crazy. Joel, you're complimenting me. Thank you. Jose says, greetings from Costa Rica. What's up, Costa Rica? I saw your video from the 2018 studio tour. Is there any piece of equipment you'll like to have? So you're saying, is there anything I feel like I'm missing that I would like to have? I wouldn't mind a second one of these mics so I could use it for stereo stuff and overheads, because I hear they're great on overheads. This is the Roswell Mini K47. My stereo tube pre is dead, so I wish that wasn't dead. I need to get somebody to fix that, which I need to do that before the session next month. I wouldn't mind having a bass just to play around stuff in between sessions, and a Kemper would be awesome. I love the sound of those. What else? I've been looking at some 500 series stuff, like compressors and EQs and stuff. That'd be kind of fun. I just heard a rumble sound somewhere in my house. I don't know what that was. Let's just ignore it. Jeff, what's up, Jeff, says, in your recent videos on recording a singer and acoustic guitar, what might you do differently in the mixing stage to make things sound bigger when you don't have any other tracks? If they played at the same time, your hands are a little bit tied, right? Because you can't really go like really compress the vocal without bringing up the guitar sound. So when I do those, I tend to just EQ each track and then try to compress the overall mix to get some aggression out of the vocal. You can try different things, but I usually find that that's the way to get it sounding bigger. A little bit of reverb can help, but otherwise it's just in the recording, which is both good and bad. I don't know if that makes sense. What's your favorite virtual instruments? I use MainStage, just the stock stuff on my laptop for keyboard stuff, and I like those sounds. And I'm almost out of time. Oh, this goes by so quickly. You know what? Let's just call it a wrap there. Thank you so much for listening. Mark your calendars. homestudiocorner.com/calendar. Register, subscribe to that. You'll get notifications every Tuesday. And I'm out of time. Thanks so much. See ya.